che baracchino.
Vedi che...
Adesso va bene.
Ok, sì.
Okay, we got it. Va bene, all right, okay, good, we made it, we did it, yay! All right, ok, va bene, allora adesso comincio. All right, guys, welcome. Finally, was able to negotiate the incongruency, idiosyncrasies of the tablet and in YouTube and whatnot. So, all right, so we can get started.
No, Robby è storto.
Ma che dici? No, va bene. Lo faccio così, sai, perché sennò è...
Va bene.
Okay, so now let's go over the eye, right? This is an example of what I posted, right, as advertisement. And before we start drawing the eye, I would like to go over a little bit of anatomy, just to figure out the structure of the head, right? So this drawing the skull, right, and three-quarter view, so we have a better idea of how these forms are oriented, right? So this is the area we'll be working on today. Let's look at the anatomical part. This bump in here, right, is the brow ridge, right? And this is of course, the orbit, where this is the lateral margin of the orbit. This is the upper portion of the orbit, right? Come down like this, goes in, and the lower portion of the lateral margin of the orbit comes forward like this. This triangle here, right, is called frontal maxillary eminence, and I show you where it is in the figure. This line here is this line here, you know. So this is this. This is this part here, right? And this is this. So we have now the orbit here. See the orbit there, right? See that? That's the orbit. So let's draw now an eye, right? In a very, very schematic way. This is something that Lisa Speck taught me at the Art Student League like 30 years ago. She was a pupil of a modernist, of Robert Henry, and this is how Robert Henry and Lisa Speck would do the eye. So we're going to draw a short line and a long line like this, right? Then a long line and a short line, meaning the peaks of the eyelid are not going to be symmetrical. So you do not want to draw the eyes like this, because the eye is not like that, right? So once you have locked in this rhomboid figure, rhomboid shape, then you can add the eyelid like this, right? And in here, you're gonna block in the iris. So now, starting from this, right? Starting from this, let's see how we can create a more complete eye. So remember, no symmetry when we draw the eyelid, right? All right, so let's start with the rhomboid eye. 1, 2, right? Short, long, and long, short, right? We can block in now the iris, right? And we want to check how much space we have between the iris and the eyelid. So on the side of the iris, we end up with shark fin. See that? Here and here. And we also have a little bit of space, a little bit of sclera visible here below the iris normally. Now, this is a very basic shape of the eye. Let's make it a little bit more complicated, more complex. from 2 lines, right, we're gonna now build 3 planes. 1, 2, and 3, like this, right? Now here I have the lower eyelid instead is going to be two planes, right? So 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2. So once we have this, we can block in around it here the planes of the face. So this is the brow ridge, the eyebrow actually. This is the top, this is the side of the orbit I was mentioning earlier on, basically here, right? See this, I have this, this, and then from here, this, and then from here, the nose is the nose, the nasion, right? Look, this is the nasion, right? The nasion is the passage between the glabella here and the nasal bone here, right? We have the beginning of the nose, and we want to see how that is. Let me put an eye here in the eye socket, right? I want to see how that is. So if this is the iris, right? You see how the iris is going to be a little bit below the beginning of the nose. See that? A little bit below. Okay, so now we block in here the beginning of the nose, right? And we have now this portion of the orbit. That's going to be the nose, right here. Actually, I made it too close to the eye, so I'm going to make it a little bit more distant from the eye, right? So this is now the nasion, right, the beginning of the nose, and this is now the nose, the bridge of the nose, and this is the wing of the nose, etc. So now there is on the side of the nose, the side wall of the nose, a plane like this, right, side wall. So all this portion here is going to be the upper portion of the orbit. We're going to also do this on the side view, right? From here, we move forward, right? So we're going to have now here the margin of the zygomatic bone. And here, that line there is, again, this line here. That's the margin of the orbit. This is the margin of the orbit. So once we block in the nose here, this is going to be the nostril, the wing of the nose, the tip of the nose. We're going to have a line here, right? Between the nose, right? The wing of the nose, down like this, above the mouth. And we're going to have now 2 lines. See this here? 1 and 2, right? These 2 lines in here help us to find the length of the nose in relation to the eye, etc. So if I look at the length of the nose, just looking at the nose, it's tricky, it's difficult, because the nose has all these bumps, etc. But if I look at these 2 lines, the space between 2 lines, I can just look at the space, which is easier to appreciate the space by just looking at the measurement. Now I have now this line here, right? I have now the line of the margin of the lower eyelid, the lacrimal ridge, and the nasolabial furrow. So 1, 2, 3, 4. They tend to do this kind of radiating pattern like this, right? All right. So now here's the zygomatic, and so therefore we can also imagine how the light will hit this form, because we can now create, for example, side plane, right? Top plane, frontal plane, and then this is the lower part of the orbit here. This is the zygomatic, the triangle of the zygomatic. This is the side wall, and so on. So now, let's look at Let's look at the eye from the side view, how they are oriented. And before we do that, I want to show you this chart that I prepared for one of my demos, right? My courses. This is the orbit, right? This is the eyeball. And on top of the eyeball, we have the eyelid. The eyelid is a specific fibrous structure that connects, start from this portion here of the orbit to this portion here, and goes over it, right? Over the eyeball. It's a thickening, right? A fibrous thickening. We also have here a muscle. This muscle here lifts up and down the eyelid, right? The lower eyelid, you see, does not have muscle because the lower eyelid will not move. The lower eyelid is fixed. Only this goes up and down, right? So now, around the eyeball, we have this muscle here, which is the orbicularis oculi, meaning the muscle that orbitate around the eye, right? Now, on the side view, right? If we look at the side view, we see how all this muscle here, which look kind of flat here, relatively flat, is in reality quite flexible, moves over the eyeball like this, right? Wraps all around this area here above and over the orbit and over the eyeball. And you see how the profile at the level of the brow ridge and down to the zygomatic bone is at an angle like this, right? Like that. So this is the orbicularis oculi in the portion that is on the bone. This is the orbicularis oculi that is on the portion on the eyeball, right? So let's see what happened on a more schematic way, right? We have now brow ridge, sorry, forehead, brow ridge, nasion here, right? Nose, tip of the nose, wing of the nose, lips. And here we have the eyebrow or the brow ridge here. And that is the side of the orbit, right? 1 and 2, see that? So we want to think that this portion here of the eyebrow, right, which is over the brow ridge like this, right, is frontal. But this portion here of the eyebrow moves on the side plane. So when you see this change of the angle between this and this portion is on the side plane of the head. See that? The side plane of the head. So don't think of the eyebrow as flat on the flat plane. They are hugging the profile of the head. And then the portion of the eyebrows that is on the front plane is thicker than the portion of the eyebrow that is on the side plane like this, right? So now here we have this angle that I showed you before, right? Let me see here, right? See that? See, look at this angle here, see that? So we have an angle between the brow ridge and the zygomatic like this. And so the zygomatic will come forward like this, right? And now the eyeball is going to be here, right? This is the eyeball. This is the orbit, right? This is the eyeball. And the eyeball is usually, right? Let me show you here. This is the eyeball. The eyeball here, see that, is not touched by this pencil here, meaning this region here of the orbit is somehow protecting the eyeball by being hit, right? So if I put the pencil here in my face like this, right, most likely I don't feel the pencil touching the eye unless for Asians, it's not, this Korean, Chinese, Japanese, it's not the same thing because this ridge is not as pronounced. It tends to be flatter and the eye is a little bit more forward. But Caucasian tend to be more like this. So we have space between this pencil here that aligns the two the two ridges of the face, the brow ridge and the zygomatic bone. So now here, right, we're gonna have over the eyeball. Also, another thing you want to pay attention to is this is here. On the nose, we have a bump in here, down like this, and then out like that. So this is the geometry of the nose, right? So this is the nasion, right? This is the rhinion, and this is the lobule, and this is the wing of the nose, right, with the columella, and the nasolabial angle, and this is the upper, the lip, right, like this. So now we'll go back to the eye. We have here the eyelid that will go over the eyeball. I'm gonna put the eyeball a little bit more recessed in there. So now the eyeball is gonna be here like this, right? The eyelid, and then goes down like this. And here we have the skin around the eye, and here I have the lower eyelid like this, like that, right? So this is the iris. So you also see how the anterior eyelid here, sorry, the superior eyelid is a little bit anterior to the lower eyelid. So this is a little bit forward compared to that, right? Like this. So now we have now that line here, right? We have now this line here, and we can look at the space between eye and nose and see if it looks correct, right? So let's try now to do this on 3/4 view. Actually, let me block in the zygomatic here, right? This is the side of the face. Okay, so let's do this on 3/4 view, right? 3/4 view. We can start with the eyeball, right? Start with the eyeball. And then we have the iris here, right? So how big is the iris in relation to the eyeball? So, all right, start some measurement. I just have an idea of the dimension of this. So the diameter of the eyeball is about 1 inch. My thumb is 1 inch in width. So it's about 1 inch or a little bit more, right? Like that, right? So then let's do it here. I draw it here. So this is the eyeball, right? And the diameter of the iris is going to be similar, very close to the sum of this portion of sclera plus this portion of sclera. So this plus this equal this, right? So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. More or less, right? Because it could be a little bit smaller. Then here inside here, we're gonna have the pupil, but the pupil will vary, right? In diameter. So now let's look at this 3/4 view. Blocking the eyeball, and then blocking the iris. So I'm gonna have of course, the iris on the side like this, right? So now here we can block in the brow ridge, the side of the orbit, right? The lower part of the orbit, like this. And then this is going to be now the nasion, right? It looks a little bit spooky because now the eye is. And then we have the nose here like this, right? So now we're gonna block in, we're gonna make the nose a little bit further out, right? Here like this. Now we're gonna block in the eyelid. So the eyelid will go from, sorry, a little bit of more information about the eyelid, position of the eyelid in relation to the eyeball. So we have the eyeball here, right? This is the iris. front view so we can see more easily the three-quarter view. The corner of the eye, this nose, right? The nose is going to be here. The corner of the eye here is going to be right here, right next to the diameter, the side of the eyeball. And you want this corner to be lower than the center of the iris. It's going to be in the lower part here like this, right? From here, what I do, I go up to the top of the iris, and then when I reach it, I go with a straight line like this, right? That covers the top, the top of the eyelid. And from here, I go down with a longer eyelid, right? So 1, 2, 3, and now this is the eyelids. What is the other corner, right? The other corner can be here, right? Or it can be here, or it can be here. This will give me a different alignment of the eyelid. So let's see how these are aligned. But first we block in the lower eyelid. So the lower eyelid is going to go down like this, right? We have seen it already, and then up like this. And in this case, connect with the upper eyelid along a line here that aligns the two corners horizontally, right? Like that. But the eye could also be, the eyelid could also be like this, right? This is the eyeball, sorry. This is the eyeballs. And we have now the iris. Now, the corner is pretty much always here in the lower part of the iris. Now, I want to look in my subject, where is the other corner, right? Because I need to draw the eyelid. So I want to know, where am I going to end with this eyelid, right? So from here up, here flat, and then up like that. Then from here, right, down, right, here, leave a space below the sclera, and then up like that. So now my eye is going to be slightly angled like this. Or you can see the third option, right? Here, right? And now the alignment is going to be lower than this corner here, right? So up, here, and down with a slightly slanted downward eyes like this, right? Right? So when you look at your subject, when you copy the eyes, you want to have an idea of these geometric structural characteristics of your subject, so that you don't just draw an eyelid, right, without knowing where you're going to go, but you have an idea of beginning and end, right? So now from here, what we do, we're going to block in the eyelid, but thinking at this point that this eyeball is turning, is round, is a volume. So the eyelid will have to kind of follow that volume, right? So now here we have the line of the upper eyelid, the lower margin, and this is now over the eyeball like this. And then from here we go down like this, right? Like that. So as you can see, now I'm going to give some thickness to the eyelid here like this, right? Right, like that, right? So, as you can see, we have now here just barely visible. Let me sharpen this pencil. This side of the eyelid, because of course it's behind the volume of the sphere like this. So now this, we see the central portion, right, of the eyelid, and this is the lateral portion of the eyelid, right? Now we have here the lower eyelid. From here we go down like this. I find the point where we have a change of angle here, because the eyelid from here will have to keep following the eyeball, therefore it's going to go up like this, right? And changes angle about here. This is the lower eyelid. Actually, I need to block in more the thickness of the eyelid, right? Like this, and up like this, right? So now here, and this is the eyelid. So now, because I have all these planes, right, visualized, it's easier to understand how the light will affect the form. For example, usually this part of the eyelid is the part that always gets a lot of highlight, right? Because it's the one that is more central, more exposed, more directed upward toward the light. This portion here, with the light coming from above that is, right, tend to be a little bit darker, right? This darker than this typically, right? So now we have three values, dark, light, medium, right? These two tend to be darker because they move away from the light, right? They are moving in, and but this tend to be a little bit darker than this, which is more on the open side of the face. Therefore, the light reaches here more easily, right? Now we have this, the brow ridge here, and we have here the upper plane of the orbit, right? All of this, see that here, all of this, right? This is directed downward like this, right? So this is all typically, right? Typically this plane here, I see this here. That is darker up to here, up to the point where the side margin of the orbit comes forward. And now we have the light. Right? If we block this in like this, right? And this comes forward like this, right? And now here we would have the side wall of the nose, right? And here we have the frontal maxillary eminence, or here, or also lacrimal ridge, here like this. Right? So let's see in a drawing that I've done. See that, right? This is a drawing that I did with charcoal. See how all these parts in here, we have, in this case, the light was coming from a little bit below. Therefore, we have all these values inverted in a sense. So the light is here, the light is here, this is dark. And this is dark because the eye now goes back in, the eyelid goes back in like this, right? This is the lacrimal ridge, part of the frontal maxillary eminence. This is now the fold here at the nasolabial furrow, here like this, right? And of course, we see how this part here catches the light, and this is a slightly higher value. And we also see light, mediums, a little bit darker, a little bit darker. And these planes are kind of following, the value follow the movement of the planes, right? So now from here, now it's gonna be light, right? But now we start again with the light from above like this, right? If the light comes from above like this plane tend to be directed away from the light. And now the nose goes out toward the light again, like this. So if now this is the side plane, right? This is zygomatic. And now let's imagine we're going to cut this figure here, right? I want to use a blue pencil. Here it is. I use a blue pencil. I want to see what happens if I cut sagittally, frontally like this diagram. So this is the forehead, right? Cut it like this. Now at this point I go in, right, for the orbit, up for the eyelid, down for the section of the eyelid, around the eyeball, and then forward here for the section of the lower eyelid, down for the lower eyelid, forward for the zygomatic, and down for the face, right? So now we have this visualization of how these planes are oriented, right? Which direction they are oriented. And this will inform us about the tonal characteristics of our subject. So one thing that you want to always consider is that when we draw the shading, right, in the eye, you need to consider that here, right, the sclera is, number one, the sclera is not white. It's always some off white, like grayish, bluish, right? the younger the person is, the bluer the sclera is. As we age, it gets more on the yellow side, right? But imagine now that here we have the light coming from this direction. This eyelid will cast a shadow here, like this, over the upper part of the eyeball, like this, right? And because this is a sphere, you don't want the white to be flat. You want to create a little bit of a, like this, see that? See how darker it is here? It's a sphere, and that's a highlight, right? Because that comes from here. So we want to always have the sclera to be not white, but not uniform in value also. If not, it feels like the eye is either popping out or it feels unnatural. It feels like there's a light behind the eye that is illuminating the eye from inside. So now let's look at the facial expression, right? So we're gonna look at 4 types of facial expression in the eyes, right? Let's see. So Jesse, this is a color pencil I'm using, right? It's a Faber-Castell Polychromos, and they are very sharp. I like them because they are hard, and they permit me to make sharp lines without having to sharpen the pencil a lot. So this is a polychrome color pencil, Polychromos Faber-Castell. I'm using, this is India red, which is a dark red, natural earth red, and this is just black and blue. But you know, I like it because you could use charcoal, right, as you mentioned in your post, but I like the color pencil because it doesn't smudge much, and it stays sharper for longer, and is more practical for this kind of work. Oh, unless you mean this drawing here. This drawing here, yes. This drawing here is charcoal and chalk on tone paper, and specifically, let me show you. I'm using this. This is Wolf's Carbon, which I like. I like very much because it's a very high quality compressed charcoal sticks. Right? This is compressed charcoal stick, and what I do. Let me show you what I do. Right with this. Right, when I need to sharpen them, I take a knife. And I shave off a lot of this. Actually, you might not be able to see. Let me do this now. I shave a lot of this, right? Get a lot of a free charcoal, the lead of charcoal here. Careful, just my knife is not sharp enough anymore because you need to have always a very sharp knife because if it's not sharp enough, you need to push harder, and you risk to break the lead, right, of the charcoal. And the sharpening charcoal will dull the knife very quickly. Right? So now I'm going to try to create a long tapered line, like point like this, right? Then, see, even this would have to be somehow, the wood will have to somehow follow the tapering of the lead, the free lead, right? Okay, so now I take this, right? And then you can do it like this, or you can do it like this, right? This is fast, but it puts a lot of pressure on the charcoal, you might break it easily. So what I do, I feel funny doing this, so I like to do it like this, reverse, like this. It's in between, see that? It's not perpendicular, not parallel, it's just at an angle. And as I do this, I also rotate this, the pencil, so I have a conical tip, right? This you need to have a long conical tip. And sandpaper is good. You can take a block of wood and tape some sandpaper or staple some sandpaper to it. You're gonna save money. Longer, right? And then what you do, take a little bit of paper towel and then take off the extra dust. And you end up with a point, right? It's a little bit longer, right? A little bit sharper. It should be very regularly conical, right? As again, I turn this as you go up and down. Then this, right? Now you can use this for your drawing, and actually, let me show you two different ways of. If you don't mind this quick detour on the charcoal, right? I have just finished working on this work here like this, right? In this case here, let me show you the marks. That all these marks are tiny, tiny little marks. They can be first very, very blocked in quickly, but then here I go over this with a little bit more of a accurate, deliberate layering, and with a point, with a fine long point like this, you can really get a lot of little minimal tonal variation, right? Here or here, and this one's a little bit more, a little bit smoother, right? But you can see the little strokes here and there, right? And when, as your corners are large, right? When the drawing is at a distance, it has a little bit of a vibration because of this little brush stroke, right? Sorry, brush stroke, pencil stroke. So in this case in here, the paper, this paper here is Fabriano Angre. Angre is spelled like this. And it has a little bit of a texture. See that here, like that. I don't know if you see the lines. See that, the lines here, which is very minimal, and it helps you to see that those lines in there. Right, this line here like this, right? Those are the lines of the paper, and they give you a minimal order to these lines here like this. But so this is charcoal and white chalk on the tone paper. So when we, because we have the eye here, when we now draw an eye, for example, right, or any other part of the facial feature, if we know how these parts of the body, the eye, are structured, we can even omit some, right? So I know that, see that I have 1, 2, 3. See that here, 1, 2, 3. And that is short and this is long, right? And in this case, the corners are more or less on the same level. Maybe this is slightly higher. So I can build the structure like this, very, very light in initial marking of the drawing, like when I would do this kind of work right here, like this, very, very structural lines. When I then go over it with the value, I can hide some because I know that I have a good structure to work with. And even if I hide some part of the structure of the face or the eye and whatnot, the eye will still look good. So you're going to be ready to sacrifice this. So this work here is very important to capture the solidity, the three-dimensionality of the form. And this will make us understand also how why I have, as I was showing again here, a light value here, an intermediate, and a darker here, and and that permits me to create a sense of turning of the form, three-dimensionality. And all these values are going to be coherent with each other because so the light, right, the light hits the form, will hit always with a certain value, a plane that are oriented similarly toward the light. So now light, right, dark, etc., etc. So here's another question. Let me see. The show dark is so is there any plan to do figure drawing lives in the future? No, I don't have any plans, but that would require planning. So let me think about that. Let me think about that. But you can, so live, I'm having live session in the classroom. Having them on live is difficult because I need to plan the model and etc. But I do have them in New York, in Philadelphia, in New Jersey, in Washington. I have a workshop where I do live model courses. So, but let me see if I can plan something, right? All right. So now let's look at the how a facial expression or the expression of an eye can quickly, really quickly change in relation to the position of the eyelid over the iris. So I'm going to draw four eyes here like this, right? Now we have here an eyeball. Actually, start from the top, right? Eyeball. And I'm going to draw first the control right eye, basically the neutral the neutral expression. I'm blocking the iris. Keep it, if you draw with me, keep these lines light, right? And so that we can adjust and keep changing them. Now, corner of the eyes here, going over all of these things we've seen so far, right? Lower than the center of the iris. Now, from here, I go up to the margin of the iris, and then from here, hey Miguel, thank you, Miguel. I hope there's going to be soon a Spanish edition of my books, but it's difficult to find a Spanish publisher. That's all. But a lot of Spanish language artists are asking me about the Spanish edition for the books, right? And there's nothing I can do. We had to wait for a Spanish speaking Spanish language publisher to pick up the book. So I'll keep you posted if that happens, right? So now here we go down like this, right? And let's say we have the orientation of the corner of the eyes the same level horizontally like this. Now here we have the eyelid like this, right? This segment of the upper eyelid like this, and like this, right? Now this part of the eyelid is going to go out a little bit more gradually compared to the lower arm because I'm going to show you why, right? So here we're going to have the fold, and this is the brow ridge here like this, right? And that's the side, so this is the orbit, right? So now the fold here is because the upper eyelid moves up and down, and therefore they create a sharp folding here. We don't have the same sharp fold at the lower eyelid because, again, the lower eyelid will not move. It moves indirectly, but it does not have a muscle that moves it up and down. So this is now the eye in a relaxed expression. We want now the lower eyelid to be slightly tangent here to the iris, and usually it doesn't touch it, right? Not tangent, but just almost tangent. From here now, what we do, right? We see how the form of the eyeballs are turning, right? From here, right? Then we have this eye, the part of the eyelid going up like this. Why is this part going so straight up toward the end, and this is not? It's because this, in a sense, kind of goes over this, right? And this instead keeps, this is intimate with the eyeball. So this goes under like that and is intimate on the eyeball, but this goes over it like that. Therefore, like it bridges over this. Therefore, this is a different angle compared to that. Here, it's almost vertical. It's almost vertical at the last portion of the eyeball, the eyelid, right? Now this is now the change of plane like this, and this is the eyelid, right, like that. So one thing, going back to this, right? This is the eyelid, see that? See this bump in here? What that is fat. That is the fat that we have because the eye is surrounded by fat, right? So this fat in here can be more or less evident depending, right, on the person, depending on the age. But basically, see all this, right, is the fat that we have around the eyeball. So this is the eyelid, that's the fat, right, here, and this is the nasal, lacrimal ridge here, like this, right? So eyelid, fat, bone. So if you start looking at old master drawing, you're gonna see all of those structure inevitably, always there. Now we have an eye here that is a relaxed expression, right? And the upper eyelid is slightly tangent, right? Or just slightly over the iris, right? And then the lower eyelid instead is just a little bit lower than the iris. So we start now with another eye here, with this, right? Eyeball, iris, and then oh, drawing poses from pictures. Yeah, I do that. I do that. I do that, but with my courses because it takes 3 hours, right? It takes 3 hours to do that. So you can sign up for my courses online, or because you cannot really do a figure drawing in 1 hour. Or you can also sign up for my Patreon, where I have a lot of videos, about 100 videos, where I show figure drawing, I show anatomy, I show a portrait, I show stereometry, I mean the puppet. So in those videos, you have, there's 100 videos that I have up, and yeah, you can follow those. To have access to the video, you have to it's a $15 a month membership, and you can watch all those videos as much as you can stomach. So let me see. Oh yeah, my new book, right? So let me finish this, and then I'm gonna quickly show you the third book, right? I'm gonna have a presentation of the book on the 16th in New York at the New York Academy of Art in person. So if you are from New York or New Jersey, you can come to the book presentation where I'll discuss it. But I'm gonna show you the book, and then because the book also has some link to videos, right? Now here is the eyelid, right? But this time, instead of having the eyelid just barely touching the iris, we're going to have this eyelid a little bit closer to the iris, to the pupil, right? And you see how immediately, and it's a difference like 1 millimeter lower, right? We have now a sleepy expression. See that? Just a little bit more sleepy, right? Like this. And you start seeing that this much difference will create a less alert facial expression, right? Yes. So this is now this side, etc. Makes sense? So we're gonna be careful when sometime you make a drawing, make a paint, say, why is my guy looking upset or mad? Because the minimal variation of the eyelid, right, in relation to the eyeball will change the expression, right? Now here, let's see what happens if we have the opposite, right? So we're gonna have here make it smaller. And this is the eyeball, right? And this is the iris. Now, what we're gonna do, same starting point here, right? And now we're gonna have the upper eyelid above the iris, showing the sclera above, right? You know when they say, don't shoot until you see the white of their eyes, right? And that's the adrenaline, right, that makes you do this kind of stuff, right? So you're running toward the enemy position, right? And of course you're gonna be freaking out, right? So your adrenaline will pump, right? And now your eyes are open. So the eyelid is going to come up. The eyelid here is going to be shorter, of course, because now I see the eyelid is coming up. Therefore, I see less of this spacing here, right, like this, right? Now here, we're going to have this same thing, down like this, right? And so now, the variation from this is this much. See that? But as you see the sclera, that signals alertness, signal tension, signals something that is, demands your attention and you're wide awake now, like this, right? Like that. So now, when we lift the eyeball here, right? The eyelid here, right? We lift the eyelid, right? But and this muscle will lift the eyelid like this. But when you really have wide open eyes, it's also this muscle here that contributes to that. This muscle here is the frontalis, right? This is the muscle that will give you horizontal wrinkles. So the wrinkles created by the muscle are perpendicular, right, to the direction of the fibers of the muscle that produces them. So in this case in here, the muscle here pulls up, the wrinkle, we're gonna have the wrinkles in here, and all this part in here of the orbicularis oculi will be pulled up, and that also affects the eye, the facial expression, right? So now, then we look at another one, right? We look at another one here. And then I'm gonna get the book, I'm gonna show you the book, guys, right? So here is now the iris, right? Now, in this case in here, we're gonna have is this. We have the eyelid here like this, right? But now, this is the eyelid like this, right? Now we have the lower eyelid going over the lower margin of the iris. So this typically does this, right? That. Now, you're gonna say, wait a second, but you just told me that there's no muscles that move the lower eyelid. Yes, there's no muscle. What moves the lower part of the eyelid here is the lower part of this orbicularis oculi. So this muscle in here, right? If you use all the portion of the muscle, will make you close the eye, right? But if you only act on this, use this lower part of the muscle, you squint. So this is not working, but this works. You can use it selectively, right? And then this will, squinting will pull up you're squinting by instead of closing completely the eyes, you only lift this lower part in here, and then this eyelid will be pushed up, right, by this muscle. Here now you have the squinting, this thing here like this, right? The squinting can be more or less, right, depending on how you kind of use the eyelid, right, like this, right? And then this, if I do this, right, with the eyelid at upper or the eyebrow like this, we have somebody who's upset, right? And then here, all this push, this is part of the mouth like this, right? Comes up like this, create a grimace like this, right? That's why I was showing you those lines around the eye, because how these lines are oriented like this. So the mouth is like this, right? It pulls up this way. This the nasolabial furrow, right? This is the nose, is gonna go up, and as the mouth creates a grimace or a smile. So this could be somebody who's a satanic smile, right? Like this, right? Or it could be also with the same expression of the eyes. Right? If I change now the direction of the eyebrow, if I have this, I see that, and it can be a smile, different. But so if you cover the mouth, right, you can see this as somebody who's smiling or laughing or being happy or about to cry. If you do this, right, about to cry like this, right, you move this down, right. So these are basic expression of the eyes are really important to understand, because then from here you can develop your face, the facial expression, much more accurately, right? So I'm gonna get the new book, right? It should be out now. It just came out a few days ago. Let me just get the book. I'm gonna show you the differences, right, between the first two. These are the first two, right? So, by the way, let me show you something. So the first book is topographic anatomy. Where are things, what they are called, all the basic proportion of the figure, and this builds up. You can see this builds up the muscle layers from the skeleton, and then gradually I add muscle until we get to the external front. So this is very systematic, very good for understanding the anatomy in depth, and movement, etc. Right? Facial expression. Now, facial expression, I don't have facial expression here, but the hands, techniques, etc. Right? So this is the book you might want to start with, unless you already know this stuff, right? The second book instead gets into the movement, right? The movement of the body. And in this case in here, we have a little bit of anatomical information to begin with, but only for what concern the superficial muscular layers, right? Well, in some cases I go in depth, right? But always in relation to the forms that these produce externally, meaning I'm moving on to a more an aesthetic approach to this, right? So, and then of course, as you can see, all these are related to how to build a figure, right, from this basic volume in movement, how to measure the lines of flow that we find in the body, this typical aesthetic line of continuity between the various parts of volume of the body. See that, right? Of this, right? And movement, right? How to read the movement, how to create movement. So this is more, again, dynamic, right? Dynamic approach to the human figure, right? So then this is also facial expression. And in this one, I discuss quite a lot of in detail, right? See this part I just showed, they just seen together, right? How, what muscle creates certain, what expression the various muscle create in the face. So this can be useful in case you want to work with graphic novels or etc. This instead, this is the new book, right? So the new book. Oh, so if you get the new book, you want to go on page 10, and on page 10 there is a link with a password and under the introduction, and you can access instructional videos. There are about 10 videos so far, but I'm going to add more, right? So this is basically a book of exercises where I show you how to create. So this is an exercise, for example, right? So you would take, I don't have the tracing paper here. You would take a piece of tracing paper here, put it here, and then copy this on the tracing paper so that you can do it 2, 3, 4 times. This exercise is specifically to understand the stereometry, that this is the classical stereometry, and this is the more modern stereometry, I mean round and more easy stereometry. Male and female, different angles, different point of view, all these exercises, and then eventually I start moving the figure, right? Moving the figure, and to use stereometry for practical purposes, right? To draw the figure, studying this figure in action only as stereometric volume. Then we get in more and more complex understanding of the movement by, again, analyzing it through these little puppets, right? And then eventually see how to apply this stereometric approach to the practice of figure drawing, right? Or foreshortening, for example. There's also lots of foreshortening in here, right? Foreshortening, etc. Right? And again, how to apply to the practice of figure drawing, right? Then many examples to follow. These are all exercises, right? Same thing now with application of the muscle over the skeleton, right? And superficial muscle, male and female, front, back, and side, etc. And then how to, once we understand where the muscle go, studying it from a control point of view, then we apply them to the figure. It is basically the concept behind this book was this: when I teach anatomy, one big difficult moment for the student is to go from the charts to the model. So with this book, I organize a series of lessons that will permit you to transition gradually from the charts to the figure drawing by going through first these puppets, then copying, putting the muscle on the puppets, then analyzing work of art, and then drawing in this case, and then reading, finding all the landmarks, all the crucial points that we have studied previously, and apply the muscle on top of it. Then, so same thing for painting. So I use painting and drawing, and then analyze them also from the point of view of dynamism, right? See that dynamism and the narrative, and then we start working from sculptures. Same thing. So now we go from the charts to artworks that depict the human figure more or realistically, and then to sculptures, and eventually reading them in the real figure, which is the difficult part. So now, once you have gone through all the various stages of analysis of the human form from charts to stereometric to myology, osteology, and then the drawing and sculpture. Then you can really, it's gonna be much easier to find all these landmarks in that and all the position of the muscles and create the read the form much more accurate. In fact, the subtitle of this book is reading reading the human form, right? So then of course have techniques, drawing techniques, the Florentine structural system, the more academic system, and all the exercises with step-by-step demonstration. This is a the reference photograph, and I'm gonna post these images on the link that I provided in the book. And it shows how to go from, in this case, a reduction technique, from the initial sketches to the finished work. So, and then eventually how clothing can be used for aesthetic purposes. Once we understand the body, then we also know how to. It's easy to layer the figure with clothing and use it for aesthetic narrative purposes. So, so if you want, on Thursday, the 19th, at 6 p.m., I'm doing a free webinar for Patreon, right? For free members. So you can sign up for my Patreon for free, and this is another hour of a free webinar that you can also enjoy. So you don't have to pay to have access to this free Patreon. Just sign up for a free membership. And so Thursday, the 19th at 6 p.m. if you want. All right, guys. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to maybe chat with you a little bit about this. I hope this explained a little bit the difference between the various books, right? If not, if you don't have any question, I'll see you on maybe in a month or on the 19th, right? So Miguel, Russian teachers. So the Russian teachers use. No, I didn't study with Russian teachers. I studied with Italians, with Americans, with mostly Italians in Italy and in the United States, but not Russian. But the Russian teachers use a lot the BAMES method, which is based on the Florentine structural system, which is what eventually the Russian use, right? So indirectly, I know the Russian system indirectly because they use the same structural system that come from the Florentine structural system, which is what I teach, what I work with, right? So, but the Russian artists are fantastic. The Russian school is really fantastic because they were working the main role of the artists in Soviet Russia was to create realistic images for propaganda. So so they really put a prize on depicting the human figure the way it was, and they in a sense they skipped modernism. They're catching up now, but yeah, so they're very good Russian artists. A great respect for them, but I didn't study with any Russian artists, no. Udemy. So if I have one more question on Udemy, so for now we are concentrating on Patreon, and I have much more control over Patreon, what I can do, what I cannot do, and because I decide what to do instead of I have direct feedback from the people that sign up for my Patreon, so I can create more specific works. Not so much with Udemy. So I prefer now to focus on Patreon. But again, if you sign up for that Patreon for free, you can see if you have a few things like see a few free a webinar and images, etc. If you instead want to have access to it's about 100 videos now, but I'm adding 2 or 3 videos a month. You can see all those videos on Patreon, and then pick the one that you like, and they're always there. All right, so all right, guys, thank you for showing up, and I'll see you in a month.